Pivot this, pivot that, pivot the other. It's been quite a big buzzword over the past couple of years with, technology, getting bigger and a lot of people having remote work. People have been considering to pivot altogether when it comes to their careers. The excitement of thinking about a new job or career move can be thrilling, but not every opportunity is the right one. So how do we know? How do we know when it's truly time to pivot or when it's better to hold your ground? Helping us answer this question is Yasmin Da Rocha, career change coach, joining us from the UK and, of course, live streaming on our various social media platforms. Yasmin, thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
You are so welcome. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Well, it has been a huge buzzword. That's because I think the world of careers has changed quite a lot in the past couple of years, and pivoting has become maybe an easier opportunity for many out there, has it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that since COVID, especially, there's just been a huge change in how people want to show up at work. I think COVID, in there was obviously loads that was horrific about COVID, but what it did show is that actually people can do so much of their work and integrate it with their life as well. And they don't need to be spending, you know, 10 hours a week commuting, and they don't need to be in the office for every single thing. So I think it's caused a real reevaluation of careers for everyone. And I think that was happening beforehand, especially for women, and especially for women post motherhood. There was this sense of, okay, my priorities have shifted, but what do I do with that? I've worked so hard for the last 15, maybe 20 years to get to where I am, and now that no longer fulfills me. So what the hell do I do next?
Let's go back a little bit and just describe what pivoting is, because we assume we all know, but I feel like maybe at times we go a little bit too far with the description of pivoting. What is pivoting, especially your career?
Yeah, so I think what some people identify it as is like burning your entire career down to the ground and starting from scratch. And it's kind of like, that's it, I'm off. I'm gonna go sit in a hut in the woods and, you know, build a fire, and I'll explain why that kind of like that narrative is there. But what pivot really is taking all of your skills and your experience and your expertise that you've built to date and using that to step into something new. So this narrative that I constantly hear is I'm going to be starting from scratch. And you're
Mm,
absolutely not starting from scratch. You are building upon what you've already got into a new space.
yeah.
And the reality is that most spaces you are not starting from unless you are literally going into a field that is so drastic, so drastically different from where you are now. Even then, I can probably tell you that you've got some kind of like in that means that you're not starting from scratch in that field.
Yeah. It's great, though, to see that people are finding the courage to pivot. I think in the previous generation, we've seen people stay in the same job that frustrates them for all their lives until they, retire. But now that doesn't have to be so. You can actually, look at other avenues and ways to pursue that. But I came across your recent Instagram post where you shared some thoughtful insights on strategic career changes, particularly your perspective on when not to make a move. And that can be a little for people to hear that, right? That, well, I do want to pivot so bad. Why can't I make that move? What are the circumstances that would say, yeah, maybe not right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that the reason that before I kind of go on to that bit, but the reason that there is no incentive to stay at an organization for 10, 20 years now, like our parents used to, is because I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but definitely in the UK, the pension doesn't pay out anywhere near as well. You used to
Mm,
get, whatever your final salary was as your pension. That doesn't happen anymore. That was a massive incentive to stay in an organization. The cost of living's gone up massively, and the pay doesn't reflect that. So the only way to match your pay is to bounce around, is to move around. So there is no incentive to stay loyal to an organization anymore. So there's kind of like societal factors that massively impact how someone is in their career. In terms of like when not to move, it's not saying do not change career. It's more around do it on your own terms and be in control when you do it. Because a lot of the times people get to a point where they're so burnt out, so exhausted. It might be that there's things going on at home. It might be that they're in a really toxic workplace and they're just like, right, that's it. I'm off. And actually that's handing a lot of power over to other people. And if they make the move without knowing some critical things, all they're going to do is repeat the same cycle in a different organization. So that Instagram post that you're referring to, there were three key things. One of them was knowing what the real problem is in your workplace at the moment. Because a lot of people come to me and say, everything's wrong. It's all rubbish. I hate it. It's everything.
Yeah.
And I go, I get why you feel that way because right now you're in it. But I want you to apply a bit of a forensic lens. What's really the issue? Is it the leadership? Is it the lack of growth? Is it the commute? Is
Sure.
it the salary? And it might be a combination of those things, but you will be able to pinpoint 3 or 4 things where you're like, this really goes against my values in terms of how I want to work and what's really important to me. An
Yeah.
example of where I've left
Okay.
work. Sorry, you go.
No, you go. It was a fantastic segue. Go ahead.
An example of when I've left has been, one of my deep values and what I really care about at work is growth. If I feel like I'm not learning, if I feel like I'm not developing, then I will become the worst version of myself. I'll be so bored. I will, even like the simplest task will just take me forever to do because I'm not cerebrally motivated to do it. In the same way, another one of my values is being able to show up with integrity. So if I feel like I can't do that in an organization, I start to not feel like myself and not feel like I can be the leader that I want to be. So that's kind of like the big one. Like understand what it is what's going on right now in terms of what's really causing the issue. The second is to understand what you want, because most people at the time of the career pivot, it's because their priorities have changed, their needs have changed from what they want from work. It might be that they have been working up the career ladder and, what's really motivated them has been getting to the next salary band or getting to the next job title, which there is nothing wrong with that. But most people, when they get to the point of career pivot, it's because they're like, well, those things are great, but they no longer actually give me the fulfillment that I want in my career. I want something different. And so it's really understanding, well, what do you want? Most people don't ask themselves that. Like, we're taught from the age of school just to chase, the next thing,
Sure.
get your grades, get your first job and then work your way up the career ladder. No, we're not ever really taught to go, what's really important to me?
Yeah,
What do I really
absolutely.
care about? What energizes me? What gives me joy? What allows me to show up as the best version of myself? And how do I want to show up, not just for at work, but also how do I want to show up for my family? Who's the person I want to be when I go home?
Okay.
That is really important because there's collateral damage.
Yeah.
When
It's mean we
people are
need to
burnt
take a
out.
bit of a break. Yeah, I love that. But some of those things that you've highlighted feel like a luxury. Like what do
Yeah.
I want? Because at the end of the day, it's like I need to
Yeah.
get my bills paid, right? But
Yeah.
also you spoke earlier on around, the emotional connection there. We have such a big emo response to what happens in work. And sometimes that's leads us to kind of move into this area where we're making emotional decisions to pivot when we don't have to be as dramatic. We'll assess the difference between an emotional career change and a strategic one, but we'll do it after the break.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
When it comes to world-class exhibitions and event solutions, one name leads the way: GL Events South Africa. From concept to completion, we transform ideas into exceptional experiences, delivering seamless events for conferences, exhibitions, business functions, and more. With global expertise and local insight, we provide innovative, sustainable, and turnkey event solutions you can trust. Partner with the industry leader. Partner with GL Events South Africa. Visit gl-events.co.za.
Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
We are in the cubicle and we're discussing pivoting, particularly how to know when to pivot and when to hold your ground with career change coach Yasmin Da Rocha. A really interesting question that Benjamin posed just before the break, and I think we should revisit that. That emotional decision versus the strategic decision. It could be both or either when you're deciding to pivot. How do you tell the difference between that emotional career change decision and the strategic career change decision, and of course when to make which?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that everything is driven by emotion. We like to think that it's not, but it is. And the difference between an emotional decision and a strategic one is the level of understanding you have about what you want and what you need. I think Benjamin made a very good point earlier around, it feels like a luxury sometimes to go after what you want, but a career pivot doesn't mean that you doesn't actually happen when you quit. Doesn't actually start when you quit your job. It starts way before that, when you decide, okay, I no longer want to be in this organization, in this industry, so I'm going to do my job, I'm going to do it well, but all that extra 110% that I give to my job, I'm going to put that energy towards figuring out what's next. I'm going to understand what I really want, what I really need. I'm going to start reaching out to my network. I'm going to start having conversations. If you start doing that, then it becomes a strategic move, because by the time you actually leave, you've got career opportunities, you've probably got a job that you're moving into. And whilst it was all driven from emotion of your needs not being met and you feeling unhappy, actually you've directed a lot of that energy towards your future instead of just piling it into the job where you are now that isn't fulfilling you, which is essentially like pouring water into a leaky bucket.
Absolutely.
Is the analogy that I tend to give.
Yeah, Yasmin. I mean, it's not easy, right, making that leap, because at times you are using indicators of faith to actually kind of get there, because you're probably using a sense of like, you know what, this is what I'm not satisfied with. You highlighted all these great areas that are very vital, where you feel like, you know what, I'm getting this dissatisfaction and I'm not really getting that personal growth here. Could you help us understand, how do you ready yourself for that change? Because I think there can be a sense of like, maybe I'm not skilled or equipped enough, and then you don't make the leap and you stay unhappy. But I think you can create a sense of change by preparing yourself for that eventuality.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so there's a couple of things there's a few things that I help people do. The first is helping people really understand what skills and expertise they have, because most people have just been on this treadmill, and especially if you are a high performer or you're quite, you're a leader in an organization,
Sure.
you're used to just moving from one thing to the next. So I call it your leadership value proposition, which is understanding your unique blend of your experience, your expertise, your strengths, your values and character, your personality and passion, and your leadership. When you bring all of those things together, you start to understand, okay, not only what I bring to the table and what I am good at and the problems that I solve, but how do I show up as a leader? What am I motivated and driven by? And what makes me me in the workplace? Now, this is really important. And I kind of, if you look at any of my socials, I go on about this constantly, about how important it is to know that, because once you know that, you're able to understand the unique value that you bring to any market. Because the reality is that, you know, you move from one industry to another, and most industries have the same problems. It's people, growth, cost, culture. So you being able to understand how you solve those problems is really, really critical. It means that, yes, you might lack in industry experience or a specific role experience, but actually look at everything else you bring to the table. That's a massive bit, and it massively impacts people's confidence. The second is kind of what I touched a little bit on earlier, which is you've got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision that you no longer want that promotion in your organization, because as soon as you decide that you want something new, you can start to shift your time and energy to figuring out what that is.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you're in a constant hamster wheel of just pouring your time and energy into your job, you're not going to be able to make any strategic move going forward.
Well, Yasmin, before we wrap up, I mean, I'm pretty sure that when you do what you do and you tell someone, no, I don't think you should be pivoting, it's not particularly a no, it's a not right now. And if you're preparing for the time when it will be possible, I mean, you've given us some of those tips already, but when you're preparing to pivot perhaps in a year or two and you'd like to upskill, is that a good idea for you to do? Sometimes, what's standing between you and the pivot is maybe a certification, a little course to upskill to a place where it's more comfortable for you on the other side of the pivot.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're pivoting into, right? There is so much, it's a comfort blanket sometimes, qualifications, because people don't feel ready. And the reality is, if you do your leadership value proposition, you might realize that you're actually way more equipped than you need to be. If you're moving into a space where there is a huge skill gap, maybe you're going into, I don't know, say you're deciding to become a therapist. Yes, you're going to need to do a counseling qualification, or say you decide you want to pivot into being an advisor in AI, and your AI expertise right now is okay, but not expertise level, then yeah, you might want to upskill in that. But I would say that it's very dependent on where you're going into. It's not just don't just throw tens of thousands of, whatever into a qualification just because it's a comfort blanket. Really assess the gap and whether that gives you the credibility that you need on top of what you already have to get there. And just to kind of like wrap up, I think it's really important in all of this to assess, your financial situation, what's going on at home. So actually building out a plan of, okay, I know that I'm going to need to save X amount if I want to make a comfortable move. It's all about identifying the things that put you back in control rather than handing that control over to your organization.
All right, we have to leave it there, Yasmin. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find you? Seem like you have these intriguing career conversations online. Take us to the links.
Yeah, I will. So you can find me on Instagram at the Yasmin Da Rocha. So TheYasminDaRocha.
Well, thank you so much. This has been very helpful. Thank you for joining us. That's Yasmin Da Rocha, who is a career change coach. Can you change and pivot from where you are? Do you think it's that easy, especially when unemployment is so rife and such a big challenge here on the African continent? Let us know on our WhatsApp number, +2783 288 6684. It's 10:30 Central African Time. Let's bring back Musibudi Makura for the latest sports.